In our next discussion, we take a closer look at how our breath influences the way we think, act, and feel, and most importantly, how the way we breathe impacts our overall well-being. Joining me for this discussion is Niki Seberini. She's a breathwork practitioner. Niki, great to have you with us.
Thank you for having me.
Now, breath is something I think so many of us take for granted because we're doing it all the time, but are we doing it well?
Very, very good question, because when we do something that we're not aware of, once again, we can develop bad habits and we're not even aware that we've developed these bad habits. So breath is part of the autonomic nervous system, and it's the only part of the autonomic nervous system that we can override. And what does that mean? It means that if we change our breath in certain ways, we can change the way we feel.
Right.
And then we get to see that, wow, maybe we were breathing incorrectly. So in answer to your question, most of us are breathing suboptimally, dysfunctional breathing. And so if we just tweak a few things and we start to breathe properly, then we do, and we experience exactly what you said. It changes the way we think, it changes the way we feel, changes the way we act, and physically we feel all of those benefits.
Now, I just want to get people to maybe take a moment to think about how they're sitting right now and how they're breathing, because just by acknowledging what you're doing physically, immediately I'm guaranteeing most of you are taking a deeper breath now. So, Niki, tell us about why that is, that if you just engage and recognize that you're breathing, how suddenly there's almost an instinct to take a deeper breath. Like the body knows it needs to breathe deeply, right?
Yeah, absolutely. But having said that, people will automatically do the through the mouth, like they're taking that deep breath, and that is not necessarily the correct way of breathing. So let's focus on what is functional breathing. What does functional breathing look like? Because as you say, when you shift from unconscious to conscious, you may be doing it incorrectly. So I would invite your viewers to, as you say, become aware of their breath. So first of all, without changing anything, is the mouth open or closed? Where is the position of the tongue? How are the shoulders moving, the chest moving? So are you breathing higher up in the chest, or are you breathing lower down in the belly? So these are the kind of things that you want to become aware of. So we live in a busy world. It's extremely stressful. And so what happens is we start to breathe in a stressful way. And what does stressful breathing look like? High up in the chest, shallow breathing. Very often we're holding our breath and we're breathing through the mouth. And so functional breathing is when we breathe through the nose, we lower the breathing, we're breathing from diaphragm and the lower ribs, and we're breathing slowly. So it's nose, low, and slow. And there are a whole lot of reasons, but that is what we should be doing. So anyone listening now, changing your posture, making sure that you're sitting up straight, nose, low, and slow.
And it's so interesting when you talk about it being up in the chest, shoulders up. It's a tension, it's a feeling of tension. And when you open up the whole body, suddenly that whole demeanor starts to relax you. So tell us about that. I mean, from a nervous perspective, when I say nervous, the nervous system, what is the benefit of this deeper, fuller, calmer breathing on our system?
Okay, so first of all, I mean, there's so much intelligence in the body. Every inhale and exhale, you have an opportunity to regulate or balance your nervous system, because that's ultimately what we want. So we have the sympathetic response, which is the energizing part of the nervous system, fight, flight, freeze. And it's not just there for when we're in emergency, it's there when we want energy, when we want to create, when we want to do amazing things. And then on the exhale, we have this parasympathetic, the rest, the digest. And we would, ideally, you want this well-balanced system. But ideal is not the kind of world that we live in. So what happens, as I said, as soon as you become stressed, all of a sudden there's tension in the throat, in the shoulders, and you start to breathe high up in the chest. Now, when you're breathing high up in the chest, and it's shallow breaths, at times you're holding your breath, you breathe like that when you are stressed. So very interesting, the brain is watching the breath all the time, and the brain is reacting to the breath. So you can imagine, without realizing it, you're holding your breath, or you're breathing high up and it's shallow breaths. What is the breath telling the brain?
Stress.
We're not happy. It's not good. The brain responds. The brain says, okay, we need safety right now. So the brain then secretes all the stress hormones, switches off the part of the brain that helps us with executional functioning and executive functioning and thinking and planning. All of a sudden, memory, emotion lights up, and that's where we start to operate. But when we change the way we breathe, so now we go from unconscious breathing, we become aware of how we're breathing, nose, low, slow. Then we start to activate the rest and digest, the parasympathetic, and the message to the brain, everything's good. So as I said, the intelligence in the body is the inhale, you're activating sympathetic, exhale, you're activating parasympathetic. So every time you breathe, you have the opportunity to bring balance to your nervous system. And that's what we want, balance.
So how can you maybe engage in a process to be more aware, to develop the habit, I suppose, of better breathing more often or more frequently throughout the day?
Okay, great question. If we look at an ART framework, so the A would stand for awareness, the R would stand for regulation, and the T would stand for transformation. So those are the three aspects of breath work. So awareness is what we're talking about now, becoming aware of the fact that we're breathing. So I always encourage people to have set moments in the day, in the beginning, to bring awareness to the breath. So when you wake up in the morning and when you go to sleep at night. So those are 2 times definitely become aware of your breath. So this is without even changing it, breath awareness. And then you can even set your alarm a few times during the day just to stop and reflect. How am I breathing? I am breathing. I'm breathing. How am I breathing? What is happening in my system at the moment? So that is the awareness part. And you can do all sorts of amazing exercises, which is body awareness and breath awareness. Then the R part, the regulation. And the regulating is sometimes you upregulating. You want a lot of energy. You want fire. You want to be creative. You want to do that. And so you're going to be upregulating. Another time you're going to be downregulating. You're overwhelmed. You're stressed. So you change your breath in a certain way to down-regulate. Other times you want to regulate, you want balance. In other words, you want to be relaxed and you want to be focused. So there are specific exercises that you're going to do, and you can do it in the moment to create and change the physiology and psychology within the body in the moment. When you do it over time through your breath awareness, then you start to really impact your mind, the way you think, the way you're showing up. And then the T, the transformative part of breathwork, which is very, very powerful. And through very specific ways of breathing, and it's getting bigger and bigger as in more and more popular, you can experience altered states of consciousness. So in other words, you can create and you can bring energy into your system, and then all of a sudden patterns of stress that you've developed over years and years, where you're holding trauma, the breath moves in and can move that energy. The more you do it, the more you introduce breathwork exercises, then you have this merge with this greatest insourcing tool, your breath, and then you start to use it more and more.
If you had to say to somebody, first step, and I think you sort of touched on it at the beginning of our discussion, first practical step to get yourself to engage with your breath, what would that be?
Awareness. How am I breathing right now? Awareness. So when we are able to switch off that stress and become more relaxed, then we're able to do a whole lot of things in our lives. So tuning in, we don't want to be dissociated. We don't want to just live in the mind. We don't want to just be consumed by the thoughts, which is where many of us are. Breathwork is an opportunity to drop into the body. Because stress and anxiety is a physical response. Understand that. You can't think your way out of stress. You can't think your way out of anxiety. So the invitation, feel into the breath. Feel into the breath more and more and more. It takes time. It's a lifelong practice.
But a wonderful time to start is right now. So Niki, thank you so much. Such a lovely discussion to just get people focused and to become aware.
Just awareness, first step. Thank you so much.
It's great to have you with us.
Thank you for having me.